Hello, welcome to Space FC and you're welcome to another tutorial. So guys, in today's tutorial I'm going to be taking you along how I made this very beautiful waterfall jumpsuit. So the name is gotten from the fact that there is an elastic by the neckline and also an elastic by the waistline, which is making the dress drop, and that is where the name came from. So guys, if you are ready, don't forget to subscribe, like, and if you're ready guys, let's just get into the video. So the first thing to do is to fold the fabrics into four. I left about 1 inches allowance here for us to join the back and the elastic band together. The particular jumpsuit we want to cut is not going to be having zipper. For us to be able to wear it, we have to add fullness to the neckline and the waistline, that the biggest part of the body, which is usually the hips. So we are going to be considering the hips measurement to consider the fullness at both the waistline and the necklines. Shock out 1.5 inches in which the elastic is going to pass through at the neckline. Start taking our normal measurement. We're going to take off 5 inches for the off shoulder. Measure is the armhole measurement. The 1.5. I will also add half inches seam allowance. Length is 14.5. This particular jumpsuit we are cutting is going to be having about 1 inches elastic. The next thing I will do is that I will also add 1 inches to the half length, and I'll be using 15.5 inches for the half length instead of 14.5. For the fullness at the neckline, I'm going to be considering my hips measurement. 40 inches divided by 4, that is 10. Sleeve, and the sleeve is also going to be having fullness, so I won't use the 10 to reduce it by about 2 inches, and I'll use 8 inches at the neckline. Shoot it out so it can be balanced. So for the bust line, we are going to be using our hips measurement divided by 4, which is 10 inches, and I'll add half inches seam allowance, so that will make it 10.5 inches. This back into the neckline. For the waistline, we'll be using our exact hips measurement divided by 4, is 10 inches, and we'll also add half inches seam allowance. Then we'll connect it back to the bust line. So this is basically how the upper part of the jumpsuit is going to be, and I'm just going to cut it out. So for the lower part of the jumpsuit, I'll be cutting out the front panel first. The first thing I'll be marking out is the crouch extension. So for us to get the crouch extension is the hips measurement divided by 4, and that also divided by 4 again. So for this, the hips measurement is 40 divided by 4, that is 10. 10 divided by 4 again, that is 2.5. So I'll chalk out 2.5. The next thing I'll be marking out is the crouch length. For us to get the crouch length is the hips measurement divided by 4, which is 10, and we are going to add 2.5 inches. And also considering the fact that this crouch line is going to extend all the way to the waistline, we are going to add 2.5 inches extra allowance. Go inward by about 1 inches here. Chalk it like this. Make a slant line here. Then we'll use this to serve as a guide to connect the curve. Crouch line also depends on how tall the person is. If the person is very tall, you can use about 3 inches. If the person is just an average height, you can use 2.5 inches. And the next thing for us to measure here, we are going to use the same measurement we use at the waistline of the upper part of the jumpsuit. Remember, we used 10 inches. Then this will be adding about 1 inch seam allowance of half inches we use for the upper part. And the reason why we are using this 1 inch is because we are going to use half inches to join the crouch together, and we'll use the other half inches to join the side. Of this measurement we are going to take is our hip line. So for our hip line, we are going to come down by 10 inches. Then I'll chalk out 10 inches for the hip line. Hip measurement divided by 4 is 10 inches. We'll add 1.5 inches seam allowance to the hips line. So connect this line back to the waistline. We are going to extend our hips line measurement all the way to the crouch line. Then having done this, the next thing we'll do, we'll get the midpoint of our crouch line, and the midpoint here is 7 inches. Our thigh measurement is 3 inches beneath the crouch line. We're going to extend the midpoint to the thigh line. Thigh measurement is going to be divided by 2, not divided by 4 like we divided the hip and the waistline. The thigh is 25 inches divided by 2, that is 12 and a half. We're going to use this midpoint to serve as a guideline to place the 12 and a half inches. Also for the thigh measurement, I'm going to add about 1 inches seam allowance and I will connect it all the way back to the hip line. So the next measurement we are going to chalk out now is the above knee measurement, and the above knee is usually 10 inches below the thigh line, so I'll chalk out 10 inches. If you are not sure of this above knee measurement, you can just place a tape rule to measure it out. So this is 10 inches for the above knee measurement. Also, I'm going to extend this midpoint all the way to the above knee line. So the above knee measurement is 20 inches divided by 2, that is 10. We'll take 5 inches here and connect it to the crouch extension. 10 inches, and we'll also add 1 inches seam allowance. Then we'll connect it back to the hip line. The length of the jumpsuit is 56.5 inches, and we'll also add 1 inch seam allowance to the hem. Extend this midpoint all the way also into the hem and the hem allowance. The hem of the jumpsuit, I'll be repeating the same measurement at the above knee line, also at the hem. The hem of the jumpsuit is not going to be fitted. Then we'll just connect the measurement all the way back to the above knee line. Having chalked out all the measurements we need for the front panel of the jumpsuit, the next thing to do is just to cut out the chalk out measurements. To chalk out where the pocket is going to sit, and for us to chalk that out, I'm going to come down by 2 inches beneath the waistline. Then we'll place a launch of about 1/4 inches. We launch it like this. Then having launched it here, then we'll come down by 7 inches. I will chalk out the 7 inches also, and also place the second launch. The place we launch is going to be where we are going to attach our pocket to, and that is all for the front panel of the jumpsuit. The back panel of the lower part of the jumpsuit, I folded this fabric also into 2, just like the way it's appearing by the camera, and I place this front panel on it. So this front panel is going to be serving as a pattern for us to draft out the back panel. So the major alteration we'll be having for the back, so for the crouch extension for the back, we are going to extend it outward by about 1.5 inches, and also at the crouch line we are going to add 1 inches also. To connect the crouch extension back into the crouch line. To also increase the back panel by 1.5 inches all the way to the hem line. These are just the major alteration we have for the back. So having done this, the next thing I'm going to do now is to cut out the shock measurements. So guys, with this we are done cutting the lower part of the jumpsuit. So for the elastic that will be pulling the waistline together to give it fitting, it totally depends on anyhow you choose to do it. You may use this tiny elastic and you may use this big elastic. So for this tiny elastic, the way to go about it is that after joining the upper part and the lower part of the jumpsuit together, directly at where you stitch the 1 inch seam allowance, you take this elastic and you pull it, then you stitch directly on it and pull it. So that is the first method. For the second method, and this is the one I'll be using, after joining the upper and the lower part of the jumpsuit together, I'm going to take this strip I've cut out. So I used about 2 inches for the strip, considering the fact that the elastic is about 1 inch with the seam allowance. Then after joining the upper part and the lower part of the jumpsuit together, I'm going to attach this strip in between them, and this elastic is going to pass through. You get to the sewing machine, you will get to understand better. So for the sleeve is also going to be having an extra fullness. The sleeve is going to be having 2 layers. So for the shoulder line of the sleeve, we'll be using 5 inches. Chalk out 1.5 inches for the elastic rack. We're going to take off the 5 inches for the off shoulder, the same thing we took for the normal front bodies. Then we're going to go down by, then we're going to take our armhole measurement. and I'll be using 8.5 inches for that. So having done this, for the width of the neckline of the shoulder, I'm going to be using 5 inches. And you're going to tilt this place outward so that it can be balanced at the time you want to turn this in. And having done this, you're going to connect this like this back to the neckline of the sleeve. So the length of the longer sleeve is going to be 10 inches, and we also add 1 inches for the hemming allowance, and I'll shock out 11 inches. The band of the sleeve, we are going to be using 7 inches. I'm going to mark out the 7 inches for the band of the sleeve, and I'll connect it back to the armhole. So this is how the longer part of the sleeve is going to look like, and the next thing I'll do now is just to cut it out. For the shorter part of the sleeve, the only difference is going to be the length of the sleeve. So I'm going to use this longer part to serve as a pattern, and I'm just going to shape out the armhole measurements. So having marked out the armhole measurement using the longer part of the sleeve, I'm just going to take out this longer sleeve. I'm going to measure the desired length of the shorter part of the sleeve. So for this, we'll be using 7 inches. I'll shock out the 7 inches, and I'll also add 1 inch seam allowance. So for the band, we are going to be using 7.5 inches. I'll shock out the 7.5 inches, then connect it back to the armhole, and I'm just going to cut it out. That is the pocket, and for the pocket we'll be using a length of 12 inches. Bear in mind that I folded the fabrics also into 4, and I'll be cutting out the 2 pockets together. So for the width of the pocket, we'll be using 7 inches. The basic measurement for the pocket, and I'm just going to cut out the pocket, and that is all for the cutting. So this is all for the cutting, and the next thing I'm going to do is to get on the sewing machine and stitch everything down. So for the sewing, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the upper part of the front, and I'm going to fold in the elastic rack just like this. I'm going to run a straight stitch on it, and also for the back, I'm going to join the middle of the back, and I'm also going to fold in the elastic rack, and I'll input the elastic. After taping the rack, I inserted the elastic. I made a direct stitch on it to secure it. So I stitched both ends, and this is how it looks like. Also for the back, I joined the back into 2 and I passed in the elastic. However, I did not join it all the way to the waistline, and that is because the elastic rack is still going to pass through this place. So for the upper part of the jumpsuit, I'm just going to keep this now and work on the lower part. So for the lower part of the jumpsuit, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to work on the front panel first, and I'm just going to join this crouch line all the way into the crouch extension. Joining the crouch line together and the next thing I'm going to do is to attach the pocket to the front panel of the lower part of the jumpsuit. So for the pocket, I'll fold the pocket into 2 like this, then place a lunge at the center of the pocket. Then having done that, I'm just going to separate them from each other. At this place we lunge, we are going to take this pocket now, and we're going to go up ½ inches above the actual lunge. Then having done that, I'm going to start the stitching from where we lunged, and I'm going to stitch it all the way to the second lunge, and I'm going to use a French seam to turn in the pocket just like the way it's appearing by the camera. So after attaching the pocket to the place we launched, just like the way it's appearing by the camera, we'll go ahead and fold the pocket to the right side. I'm going to stitch all the hem of the pocket, and I'm going to stitch it all the way to this place. When we get to this side, about 1 inch before getting to the actual place of launch, I'm going to stop this and end it about 1 inch before we get to the actual place we launch. just like the way it's appearing by the camera. I'm going to take my scissors, then I'm going to launch it also at where we stopped the stitching. Launch it, then having launched it, we go ahead and shape out the pocket. So after doing this, the next thing for us to do, we just open up the pocket. I'm going to fold in the pocket and the actual fabrics and the main fabric like this, and I'm going to run a direct stitch here to secure the pocket with the main fabrics. So also for the hem, I'm going to top stitch the hem all the way to the side, just like the way it's appearing by the camera. So after opening up the pocket, this is how it looks like. I'm just going to run a direct stitch here to secure the main fabrics also to the pocket, just like the way it's appearing by the camera. So to finish the upper part of the pocket, you may choose to just shape it and you may choose to leave it like that. I'm just going to leave it like that, and I'm going to run a direct stitch over here. So for the pocket, the last thing I'll be stitching, I'm just going to stitch the upper part of the pocket with the main fabrics to secure it, just like the way we did for the lower part. So this is how the pocket looks like when we are done. You can see that it's looking so good. This is how the inner part looks like. So the seam allowance here is going to be used to join the back panel also with the front panel, and I'm just going to repeat the same pocket process here for the other side of the pocket. This is the other side, so I'm just going to keep this now, and the next thing we're going to do is for the upper part, I'm just going to make the right side face the right side of the back, of both front and back face each other, and I'm going to join the side using just one seam. After joining both sides of the upper part together, I'm going to take my scissors and place a lunge like this. Place a lunge on it like this. The other side, place a lunge on it like this. After placing the lunge by the side, the next thing we are going to do is elastic rack. Then we'll make it, we'll start from the slit at the back, then we'll make the old side face the old side. We'll make them join each other like this, just like the way it's appearing by the camera, like this. This is the right side, this is the old side. Then I'm going to run a direct stitch at this end of the waistline. Then after running the direct stitch at the end of the waistline, I'm going to also fold in this place using about one seam. I'll fold it like this, just like the way it's appearing by the camera. I'll fold it and I'll also stitch this place. So this particular opening we are making is where the elastic is going to pass through. So this is how it looks like after joining the elastic rack. So for this, I'm going to keep this now. So for the lower part, we'll make the right side of the front panel and the right side of the back panel face each other. Then I'm going to stitch it down. Then I'm going to stitch it down with about half inches. I will join the first side. Then after joining the first side, we'll also join the second side, just like the way that appears by the camera. While joining the back panel and the front panel together, be careful as not to join the pocket. So So just the 1 inches we left for the pocket is where we are going to attach the back panel to at the pocket region. So be careful not to stitch down the pocket. We'll place a lunge here at the center here to make it relax. So we'll fold the upper part into 2, then we'll place a lunge in the center. We'll take the upper part and we'll make sure that all the seam allowance are aligning. And what do I mean by that? Like the joining here and the joining here, we'll make sure that they are both aligning. The next thing to do is to join the lower part of the jumpsuit to the upper part of the jumpsuit, and we're using just 1 cm to join it together. Joining both the upper part and the lower part, this is how it looks like, and you can see that it's looking so good. So the next thing we are going to do now, we are going to insert the elastic into this elastic rack opening that we left. We'll insert this elastic all the waist round, then we'll pull it to grip the waist. We'll pull it to make sure that the waist is fitted. So while I was cutting the other time, I was saying something about you can either choose to use this big elastic or the tiny elastic. So if you want to use this tiny elastic, you don't really need to put this elastic waist rack. So after joining both the upper part and the lower part together, you take the seam like this, then you take this tiny elastic, you pull it here, then you run a straight stitch, you pull the elastic. As you are stitching it, you'll be pulling the elastic. So as you are pulling the elastic will be gripping the waist together. So that is how to go about it if you want to use a tiny elastic, but I won't be using that. I'll be using this 1 inch elastic, and the best reason why I'm using this is because it usually provide more fitting at the waistline in comparison to the tiny elastic. After inputting the elastic, I draw it to my waist measurement. I secured the elastic with the main fabrics by just stitching it down. So I stitch both sides down. So the next thing we'll do now is that I'm going to continue the stitching starting from the upper part, and I'm going to stitch it all the way to the crouch line and even into the crouch extension for the back. So after joining the back together, the next thing to do is to fold in the hemming. You fold in the hemming, and the next thing to do, we'll join the underneath of the crouch and join it all the way to the crouch extension. So the last thing we'll be working on is the sleeve, and the sleeve, the first thing to do is to tape in the end, or the end. So I've already taped in the end just like this, and the next thing for us to do is to place the shorter part of the sleeve. Place the shorter part of the sleeve and make it align with the longer part of the sleeve, starting from the upper part. Then having done that, we'll run a direct stitch all the way to the armhole to secure both sleeves together. Then after that, we'll tape in the hem here. After taping both hem together, we'll pass in the elastic and attach it to the jumpsuit. After folding the elastic rack and passing the elastic, this is how the sleeve looks like. This is the shorter part and this is the longer part, and you can see that it's a 2-in-1 sleeve. Having done all this, the last thing for us to do is to make the right side of the sleeve face the right side of the bodice. Then we are going to attach both armholes together. So after attaching the sleeve to the armhole, just like the way it appeared by the camera, the final thing I'll be doing is to join the side of the sleeve back into the main bodice, and that is all for the sewing, guys.